Hakadosh Boker Or Masechet Gittin Daf Samechvav Mudalev 66a1. We're going to start a Mishnah. Samechvav Mubet on the bottom, where the Mishnah says Barishona. At the beginning, Hayu Omrim, they used to say Yotze Bakolar, something that's coming out that he's in his chains, and he says Kitvu Gel Ishti. They're going to write it, they're going to give it. But then afterwards, Chazur Lamar. Then afterwards, they went and said not only the one that's coming out in chains that's going to be killed by the government. The same thing, the same halacha would apply to somebody who goes to the desert or somebody that goes to the sea. The same halacha would apply. The Shimon Shuzuri says even the Mesukan, which is somebody that's in a sakana, the exact same halacha would apply as well. Says the Gemara, Gniva Yotze Bekolarava. Gniva was coming out. He was being Yotze Lekolar, which means he was going to be killed. Kiavakanafik, when he was going out, Amar, he said, Havu arba me'azuz el Rabbi Avina. Go give 400 zuz to Rabbi Avina. Mechamra de Nehar Panya, from the wine that he has in Nehar Panya. Amar Bizera, says Bizera, Dara Rabbi Avina lesilte. Rabbi Avina, right? He should come take his basket from his shoulder and take tzedal derech, right? Ve'aza legabe de Rav Huna Rabbi, and he should go to Rav Huna as rabbi, that for sure he's going to be posek that he was zochen this matana even without a kinyan. So one more time, Gniva's going out to be killed. He comes and he says before he's going out to be killed, give 400 zuz to Rabbi Avina from the wine that he has in Arpanya. So Rabbi Zera comes and he says that Rabbi Avina should take his basket to Rav Huna, his rabbi, but for sure Rav Huna, his rabbi, is going to come and say he's going to be zochen the money. He's going to get the money. Okay, fine. Tamar Rav Huna says Gito matanato, right? To do with the get of the shchiv merah is the same halacha to do with the matana of the shchiv merah. Meaning, just like a shchiv merah, he gives a get or a matana, selam shos. Just like a shchiv merah comes and he gives a get, it's a get. So too he gives a present, it's a present. All the same halachot. Ma matanato, just like the present imamad choser, if he gets up, he retracts. Meaning, imagine you have somebody that's on a deathbed. He comes and he says, I'm giving $1 million that he has to John Paul. And all of a sudden, after a week, a miracle, he gets up. It goes back to him. Why? Because everyone knows. The only reason, exactly. It was only because he thought he was going out. But if he's coming back, he's going to want him back.
Too bad.
Yeah, too bad, exactly. Next time, John Paul. Yeah? Choser, so he could retract. So to Gito, imamad choser, the same halacha would apply. To do the get. He commanded to give a get, and they gave a get. If he gets up, it's not a good get. He's choser. Umagito, just like his get, afal gavdulo parish, even though he didn't explain, right, that they're going to give the shliach to get to his wife, Kevin Delamar Kitvu, the second, he said Kitvu, write it. Afal gavdulo martenu, even though he didn't say give it, meaning usually they have to say Kitvu utnu, write and give. Here, he only said write a get to his wife. But we know that it means that to write, it means to give it as well. So to matanato, Kevin Damar, so to once he said tenu, to give it, afal gavdelo kanu mine, even though they did not do a kinyan, it's still going to be a good case. Okay? Matki fla Rabbi Abba. So Rabbi Abba comes and he asks the following question: I ma matana yeshna le'achar mita, av get yeshna le'achar mita. He says 1 second, but there's going to be a difference though. Matana. Does matana apply after death? Yes. What does that mean? If he comes and he gives a matana, it could be given after death. There's no problem. But a get cannot be given after death. Once the guy dies, kaddish. Exactly. Yeah, that's it. So says the Gemara, Hachi Ashta, can you compare both cases? Bishlama matana, it's good matana, ita lachar mita, there's after death. Ela get lachar mita miika, but it doesn't exist such a concept as get lachar mita. Ela Rabbi Abba, but rather Rabbi Abba harika shalei. He had this question. Matanat shchiv mina b'miktzati. It's considered a matanat shchiv mina b'miktzat. Yeah? Why? Because he left over something for himself. Meaning usually matanat shchiv mina, they give everything out. Because why are they going to leave everything over? Anyway, they're dead. They're going to die. But here, he left over something to himself. Since he left over something for himself, he has to do a kinyan. The other guy has to do a kinyan in order to come and to acquire, right, those properties. Miklal de Ravuna Savar, lo by a kinyan. So it's mashma the Ravuna holds that you don't need a kinyan, right? We pass that you do need a kinyan. So says the Gemara, Shanehacha, it's different over here. The mitzaveh mechamat mitahu. That here it's barur, right? Here it's like a certain, right? That he's going to be that it's only because of the mitah that he's trying to give it over. So in such a case, even matana bal peh, right, right, is going to be kayam, even though derech klal shchimera is not going to be like that. Here, right, is going to be okay. Miklal the Rabbi Yami savar, so it's mashma the Rabbi Yami holds, right? Mechamat mita, mitzaveh mechamat mita by a kinyan, that if you're going to be commanding because of it, you do need a kinyan. Kaimalan de lo by a kinyan, we pass that you don't need a kinyan. According to Rabbi Abba, this is what he had the question. Chamra lo ka'amar. Demei chamra lo ka'amar. He didn't say chamra, and he didn't say demei chamra. Chamra means wine. He didn't say give over the wine. And he didn't say give the money of the wine, the value of the wine. He said me chamra ka'amar. What does that mean? He says 400 zuz from the wine, which is mashma that there's something wrong here. Why? Wine does not make money. So that's what the question was. If you would have said give him 400 of wine, or the value of 400 of wine, makes sense. If you're going to give him the value of money of 400 of wine, it makes sense. If you're going to say the money from the wine, what's money from the wine? Wine doesn't make money, right?
To sell it?
If you sell it, but it doesn't make money itself, right? That means you're selling the value, right? When you sell something, it has value. So you're selling the value and then you're getting money. But the wine in itself is not the money. So he says the idach, right? The other one, right? Mechamra kedeli apot lekocho. Why did he use the terminology mechamra? He went and he said, right? Liapu kekocho. Right? What does that mean? Liapu kekocho? To come, right? And to be miapeh his koach, to give him a stronger strength. So shalfu mitam. So they went and they sent, right, from Eretz Israel. Mei chamra is the same thing. To come and to be miapeh the koach.
And is in the pit.
There's the Mishnah. Mi shaya mushlach labor. Yeah, you see, somebody that's thrown into the pit. Ve'amar, and he says, Kol hashomea et kolo, yichtov get lishto. So imagine he's already in the pit. And he says, anybody that listens to his voice, I mean, he's talking about himself, they should write a get to his wife. ודאי. ויתנו. They write it and they give it. They write it and they give it. Okay? Ma? Well, that means we don't even know who the guy is, right? Because he's already in a pit. So we don't even know who the guy is. They're going to write it, they're going to give it. Right? No, לאו דווקא. בור זה גם כלא, אבל זה לא לאו דווקא.
רגע, לפני המשנה לא עשית סיכום?
מה? כן. ולחוש, so we ask, shema shedhu. Maybe it's a shed. Meaning, remember, we cannot see who the guy is. So we hear somebody screaming from a pit, so we suspect somebody fell down, right? And we're going to suspect that it's, Yitzchak ben Avraham. So Yitzchak ben Avraham is screaming, right, to get to his wife. So says the Gemara, maybe it's a shed. Maybe it's a demon. How do we know Bemet it's Yitzchak ben Avraham and he's going to now write, and we're going to write the get for him, and we're going to give it to the wife? How do we know?
Yeah, but if the husband is not in the pit, then she's going to know that it's not from him.
He's out of town. Maybe it's a shed. Mm-hmm. Yeah? So Amar Rav Yehuda says, Keshera'ulo demut adam. No. You could tell that it was a human being. Meaning, you could tell it's a human being, but you can't recognize it. Right? You can't see the face, but you know that it's a human being. Right? He doesn't have the chicken feet. He doesn't have this, that, yeah. You could tell it's a human being. Okay. So it says but they also sometimes they look like human beings. What does that mean? So it says dechazula bevua. So we're talking about that they saw dmut that has a tzel. So if it has a tzel, if it has a shade, right? That means it's got like some shadow. So therefore, it's not going to be a shed. So it says 1 second. They also have a shed. They also have a shadow, right? He says they also have. Right, so answers the Gemara, the chazula bevua devua. No, they had a shadow of a shadow, right? Which means that a shadow of a shadow they do not have. They have a shadow, right? But they do not have a shadow of a shadow. So says the Gemara, the din ma'inu nami. Maybe they also have that. Maybe they also have a shadow. Amar Rav Chanina, says Rav Chanina, Limedani Yonatan Beni. Yonatan Beni taught me, Bevarua it lehu, Bevarua devarua lelehu. Right? So he says, Atzel, they do have. Tzel shel tzel, meaning, one more time, a shadow they have, the shadow of the shadow they do not have. So says, yes.
Yalla.
The Dilma Tzarahi, he says, maybe it's a tzara. Yeah, you know, everyone has tzarot. But here, this is a woman that she's the tzara. This, you know what the tzara is? The co-wife. Chazak Baruch, Yevamot. The co-wife always wants to put her foot in everything. She wants to, so maybe it's a co-wife. She goes down there below and she starts saying, give a get to and she's playing. Yeah, they're playing around. Yeah, so basically, she's coming, and it's not the husband, it's the co-wife, and she's pulling a... Yeah, exactly. So Tana Devei Bishmael, Beshat Sakana, Kotvim V'Notvim V'Shemekrin. You're right. During Shat Sakana, it's something completely different. During the time of Sakana, we write the get and we give the get, even if we don't even know who the husband is. Shat Sakana. We're not going to start... No. Shat Sakana. Do it right away. Imagine there's a war. There's no time now. Shat Sakana. They'll come, they'll just start writing. They're gonna bring a proof, bring a this. They don't have the time. Right. Go. So they're doing it. Okay? Fine. Next Mishnah. Samech Vav Amud Aleph, the second Mishnah. There's 3 on the page. Yeah, you guys are lucky. Yeah, it says the second Mishnah. Habari. Yeah, Shetia Bari. The Bari comes and he says, Kitvu get liishti. Write a get to his wife. Ratza lisahek ba. If he didn't say just write it and he didn't say give it, he was playing around with her. He didn't really want to actually bemet. He wanted a keilu that they hear that he's going to write a get to his wife. He's not actually giving it.
I went to the lawyer.
Exactly, went to the lawyer. Maaseh bebari echad she'amad, there was a story with a bari that he went and he said, Kivu gel ishti, v'ala lerosh hagag v'nafal v'met. He went and he said, write a get to his wife, right? And they wrote it and they gave it. He went on top of the Rosh Hagag and he fell and he died. If he threw himself down, harez a get. It is a get. Right? Why?
Suicide.
Because, yeah, that means that he really wanted to divorce her. Right? And because of he forgot the word tenu. Meaning, he wanted to divorce her. He was already, his head wasn't there. He wanted to divorce her. So what did he do? He forgot to say the word give it.
Why?
And then he went on top of the roof and he threw himself down. But if if it just fell off the roof, right, then it's not a get. Why? He didn't say.
Why do you assume that if you commit suicide?
Says the Gemara, I don't understand. This is the Maaseh Listor. What happened at the beginning? At the beginning, we saw that a bari comes and he says, Kitvu gel ishti. He was just fooling around with his wife. He was playing with her, right? And then all of a sudden it comes and it brings you a story. That the story says it is a good get. So I don't understand what's going on. Is it a good get? Or is it not a good get? Decide what's going on. Maaseh Listor. Remember, whenever the Mishnah brings a story, sometimes it's as a proof and sometimes it's as a stira. But it's not normal that it should be a stira because if I'm going to tell you halacha, I'm not going to bring you a story the exact opposite of what I just said. Doesn't make sense. So that's what the Gemara is asking. What? Maaseh Listor? Does that make sense? Answers the Gemara. No, we're lacking part of the Mishnah. This is what it has to say. We just said in a normal case. Normal case is when you have a bari that says kitvu get liishti. And then afterwards, he comes and he says, but what happens in a case where sofo is mochiach al tchilato? Meaning the end result proved what I suspected in the beginning. That it's not like that. Meaning, in a normal case of bari, you're right, yes, say kitvu utnu. Write it and give it. If he only said to write it, he's fooling around with her. Right? That's like, writing up the divorce, but he doesn't serve it to her. He doesn't give it to her. So they're not divorced. He could have it written for 10 years. As long as he doesn't give it to her, they're not divorced. Yeah? However, though, If Sofo is Mochiach al Tchilato, if the end is going to prove on the beginning, it is going to be good. There was a story, but there is a get. So you see, it all depends what the story was. Okay, next. How Gavra de Albe Knishta? There's somebody that goes to the Bet Knesset. Yeah, it happens. And what happens? Ashkach Mikre Yenuka Ubred Yadve. He saw a Melamed Tinokot and his son, they were sitting. There was somebody else also there. Amal Lehu, he comes and he says, right? Beitre Minaichu Nichtavu Gita Lidvitu. Two of you should write a get to his wife. Right? Lesof, Shchiv Mikre Yenuka. At the end, before the get was given over, the Melamed Tinoko passed away. So now the Gemara asks, Mi mashve'in shebra shlicha bimkom abba or lo? Does it make sense to make the son a shaliach instead of the father or not? Right? Here, obviously, we were talking about that the son was older, right? Because it can be mamash a child, because if not, there's no question. But basically, you have three people: father, son, and a third person.
Teacher.
Okay? What?
Teacher, no?
No, the father was the teacher.
Yeah.
The father was the teacher, the father and son, right? The son was the student, and there was another third person. So now, right?
The father is not the teacher. Now you look.
Yeah, so one more time. You have the three people there. Father, that he's a teacher, and his son, and a third party. So now the what happens is the guy comes in and he says, I want two of you to write the get and to give it to the wife. So now you come and you say, okay, there's many different ways. So you could say it's probably the father and the third person. But now the father dies before giving over, before the get. So if the father dies, which was a teacher, he dies before giving over the get, now we're going to have a problem. What's the problem? Does a person make a shaliach? Yeah? Does he make a shaliach, a son, instead of the father or not? Why? If you're going to say yes, right? That means I've got the father and son, and I will come to, and I will make the son a shliach instead of the father. So then the son could also be here, the shliach. So you have the son in the third person. They write the get, no problem. But if you're going to tell me a person will never leave the son, will never leave the father to give it to the son, so now you have a problem. Because if the father died, so then Kaddish, there's nothing else to do. You can't do anything anymore. Because now you don't have two people. The son, you would have never given it to the son instead of the father. So therefore, what does it help?
It was not precise at the beginning, so we don't know.
No, but that's the question. Is it normal to appoint a son, a shaliach, instead of the father or not? Rav Nachman comes and he says, Lo mashuin she, right? A person will never do such a thing. Right? But if Papi says, yes, mashuin she bra shlucha b'minkom abba. So Rava comes and he says, Hilchot Atzalacha, man shviin shebra shlicha b'minkom abba, that they do it. And therefore, these two people, which is basically the son and the third party, they could actually come and they could do that.
But why do we say bimkom abba?
Ishna, the last line in Samech Vav Amud Aleph. Amar li shnaim tenugya li ishti. Imagine he comes and he tells two people, give a get to his wife. Right? Samech Vav Amud Bet. Or li shlosha, or three people. Kitvu get to tenu li ishti. Write again and give it to his wife. Harelu yichtavu v'yitnu. So they're going to write it and give it. Amar li shlosha, if he said to three people. Tenugya li ishti. Harelu yomru la'achirim yichtavu. So they can actually tell other people and they will write it. Right? Why? Shasan bedin. Because he made them into a bedin. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Vezo halacha ela Rabbi Chanina ish ono bet asurin. This is the halacha that Rabbi Chanina ish ono came and he taught from Rabbi Akiva in the bet asurin. When Rabbi Akiva was in jail, they learned from him halachot. This is a mekubal ani beomer l'shosha mekubal. If you're going to say to three people, tenuga li'ishti sheomru la'achirim yichtavu mnei shasa bedin, he made them into bedin. Amar Rabbi Yosef, says Rabbi Yosef, nominu l'shliach, right? We're going to come and we're going to say to a shaliach, af anu mekubalin, right? We also have a masoret, right? That it's exact opposite that you're giving. Shafiru amar lebedin gedosh, but even if the shilmedu v'yichtavu v'yitnu, they have to write, they have to learn it, write it and give it, meaning that they cannot make another shliach. They cannot make another thing. So Amar la Sarah, what happens if he now says to 10 people, Kitvu get lishti, write a get to his wife. So one person writes it and 2 people sign it. But if he says all of you should write it, one of them write it and everybody else is sign it. And therefore, if one of them dies, it's going to be batel. Okay, it was a very simple Mishnah. The Gemara will explain this Mishnah. Okay, Samechvav Mubet the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba shalchu leberav l'Shmuel. They sent from the academy of Rav to Shmuel. Yelamdenu Rabenu, right? Teach us our master. Amar li shnaim. If he says to 2 people, kitvu tunu get lishti. Ve'amru la sofer ve'katav ve'chatmu hen. Mao. One more time. When you come and you go to somebody and you tell them, write and give, it's much more that you want them to write and them to give. That means they're doing everything. What happens if you have these 2 people? They went to a sofer. And they told the sofer to write it. But then they signed it. And they did everything else. What's halacha? Is the kpeidah that they have to do it and they cannot appoint somebody else, right? Which means nothing. And is that only on the chatimah to get? Or is that also on the writing of the get? Because they didn't write the get. They gave it to a sofer. So what's halacha? So shalach lehu, he went and he sent them. Tetzeh. Yeah, what does that mean? It's a safek discount. That davar tzarich talmud, but we still have to learn it. Meaning that it's not that simple what's going on. So my davar tzarich, what does it mean with davar tzarich talmud? Maybe it's mile. Mile are words. We have a doubt. Can you give over words for a shliach or not? Meaning like this. I'm giving this to David. David could come, since this is something tangible, and he could give it to you to become a shliach as well. Here, I'm only giving to him words. Can he give over words to you? Because it's not something tangible. Words are not, it's not like an object that you could pass on the ball. There's no ball. It's words. So therefore, the question is, can words be given over to a shaliach or not a shliach? So I come and I point at him a shaliach. I tell him, you go write a get. If he's not going to make another shliach, and I didn't tell him to be a shliach, I told him, you write the get. So maybe Bemet he can't to make a shliach to write it. He has to do the entire thing. And if he's not going to do it, it's going to be a problem. What? So ve'amar Shmuel amar Rabbi. So says Shmuel in the name of Rabbi. Halacha zek Rabbi Yosef. The amar milom. You cannot give over words to a shliach. You can't give over words to a shliach. Okay. Ela li Shmuel hakami ba'ili. But we have a question according to Shmuel. Haiketovu. When they say come and say write it. Ikatav yadan, ikatav get. What does that mean? Does that mean the katav yad, which means there's signatures, or does it mean actual get? Because when he went and he told the whole group, write it for me, maybe he just meant sign it for me. Because there's only one that's writing usually. And therefore, when they said kitovu, it meant chatomu. Right? So he comes and he says, why don't we just bring a proof from the Mishnah? Amar li shnaim, if he says to 2 people, to get lishti, or to 3 people, kitvu get to lishti, yichtivu v'yitunu, they're going to write it, and they're going to give it. They're not allowed to make a shaliach. They cannot come and start making shlichim. Yeah? No. So that's the question. When it says ketovu, is it ktav yadan or ktav get? When it says write it, does that mean that they have to sign it, or they have to actually write it with their own handwriting? So pshita the ktav get, for sure it's actually the writing of the get. תקטני סייף אמר ביוסף, נאמינו לשליח, אבל הם מקבלים שאפילו בית דין הגדול בירושלים יצאו גט לישתי, שילמדו ויכתבו, they have to write the get themselves. ויתנו לנו, and they give it. אם אמרת בשמיים, you're going to tell me right now, כתב הגט, who that is כתב הגט, it's going to be good. But if you're going to tell me it's just the signatures, מיקה בית דין דלא ידע מכתב חתים ידיים? Does there exist a beit din that don't know how to sign? We're talking about the beit din הגדול בירושלים. Right? בית דין הגדול בירושלים, you're going to tell me that nobody knows how to write their signature? We're not talking about the get. The get is actually a chokhmah. You have to learn safrut. You have to learn how to do it nicely. This, that. You're going to tell me that they don't know? There's something wrong here. Yeah? So obviously it means to actually write it. Answers Gemara, yes. Ika bedina chadad. There's a bedin chadash, which basically they didn't learn how to write their signatures. And therefore that's why they don't know it. So it says Gemara, if they hold that that it's a ktav yad, haktav get kasher. So therefore, right, the get is going to be kasher, even if they're going to get somebody else to write it. Amar Shmuel Amar Rabbi, you cannot appoint a shliach through words. Meaning, if I made David my shaliach, he cannot make another shaliach on my words, right? Because it's only words. There's nothing else. If somebody gives you a get is tangible. You could give that over and continue going, but not as words. Words cannot be given over, right? And by the way, even to do with a shaliach, usually he has to tell him that I appoint you a shaliach, or to make a shliach to a shliach, and that's what you always do. For example, when you guys sell chametz, what's it written? Right? It's not just written that you give me the power of attorney to come and to sell your chametz. It's me and another one, my agent and my agent. That's the way that you appoint a shliach, by the way. Okay? So he says, they said, if you're going to tell me that ktovu means the ktav yadan, ktav get na'aseh ke'omer amru. So that means it's like you're saying it. He says, if you come and they say imru la sofer sheichtov, right? You can't do that. Omer imru is what happens if he comes and he says, go tell the sofer to write it. Meaning the guy comes into Betin and he comes and he tells, right, David's the Av Betin, and he comes and he tells him, imru la sofer, tell the sofer to write a get. That's words. So that's the question. Because usually, right, the way that it works is that the husband, in front of the witnesses, appoints the sofer to write the get. And then the husband, in front of the rabbi that's Masechet the get, and in front of the sofer, appoints the witnesses, right, to sign the get. Meaning everything's being done by appointment. If all of a sudden you wanted to switch sofer, they need a new appointment. Meaning they have to start again. You're now appointing Mr. So-and-so instead of Mr. So-and-so. And now he's going to write your get. And then it's like that. It's much incredible. You have to do that. Okay? So he says, does Rabbi Yosef come and he actually agree? We learned in the Mishnah, Ktav sofer ve'ed, kasher. He says, when you have a sofer that writes a get, and then there's another ed, it's going to be kosher. Rabbi Yomi says, Chatam sofer sheni, we're talking about the sofer actually signed. Rabbi says, Matzriti mani, who's our Mishnah? Rabbi Yosef said that he says, by the way, nowadays we do not allow the sofer to sign. Meaning the sofer can never sign the get. Because we suspect that maybe he might wanted to sign, and the husband didn't tell him, and then you're going to let him sign just because you're embarrassed that, why did the husband have to tell another two witnesses to sign? And then what happens is you make the get pasul. So because of that, the sofer can never sign. So you have one sofer that he's a sofer, but he cannot sign. You need another two witnesses. You understand? So you're always going to have a minimum of 3 people there, because you need a sofer and 2 witnesses. Sofer and 2. It doesn't exist doing the same one. For example, by kiddushin, it's not like that. I could be Misader Kiddushin, and I'm one of the Edim as well. So I'm doing the ceremony, but I'm one of the witnesses, and then I grab another witness with me, right? You could do that. By Gittin, it doesn't work. Because Gittin, you could actually disqualify the entire get. So that's what? There was machloket here. We pass him the no. The Isal Kadai, then you're going to tell me, but there's going to come out of Chubah. Why? Because maybe he's going to come and he's going to tell 2 people, this case that I just told you right now. This is the reason. He says, but maybe what's going to happen is you're going to come and you're going to tell a group of people, listen, you guys tell the sofer to write and tell Mr. A and Mr. B to sign. Mishum kisufa the sofer, because of the embarrassment of the sofer, chayshi, we're going to suspect that he's going to sign with somebody else. And the husband never gave that instruction. Meaning like this, the instructions of the husband is the most important by a get. So if the husband comes and he tells, right, a bedin, right? So he comes and he tells Ronen, yeah, he's the Av bedin. And he comes and he tells him, listen, go tell the sofer, right, write the get. Then go tell, right, Mordechai and Eitan to sign. What happens is that he went and he told John Paul. John Paul's the sofer. So John Paul starts writing. Now, when John Paul finishes, he says, okay, so you have another ed? Now they're saying, another ed? You have another 280. What does it mean? So no, you have another end because he wants to sign. Now what happens is that we're embarrassed. Why? He just did all the hard work of writing the entire. Now we're going to tell him, no. Now we can't. Now you can't sign. You're good enough to write it, but you're not good enough to sign it. So what happens?
What's the benefit of signing?
What? No, because the signing kilu. Yeah, exactly. That you're the one that's signing it off. You're finishing off. So for what happens? So what happens is that in such a case, we might let him sign, and the husband didn't tell him to sign. The husband wanted Eitan and Mordechai to sign. So because of that, the entire get becomes pasul. So ever since then, it became pasul for the sofer to sign, even if the husband tells him he cannot do it. The sofer can never be the signature. The sofer is never the signature. It's always going to be write something. It's a wonderful day.